Hi guys, welcome back to Miscellaneous Pleasures. Uh, if you're listening to this on my podcast or if you're watching this on YouTube, thanks for clicking on the link. Yeah, this video slash podcast is about India versus Australia Test series, and the third test is to begin on 7th of January. Um, Obviously, it's third test, so the first two tests have completed, and this it's currently 1-1. And wow, what a test series this has been! And to be fair, I guess in many ways this could have been predicted. Uh, when I say this could have been predicted, what I mean is that if you look at the first test match, um, okay, fine. There's one unpredictable thing that has happened in the series, which is the fact that India's bowling has been absolutely fantastic. And when I say this, I'm not being naive. India's bowling is what won us the Test series 2 years back. But the fact of the matter is that, uh, first of all, Mohammad Siraj debut in the second Test was absolutely brilliant. Uh, the the amount of performance, the quality that he showed in the test match, is not something that people would have expected him to do. That's one thing. Another thing is that in terms of bowling, even though India's bowling is what won us the test series 2 years back, or 1.5 years back, I mean, it was 2018 December, right? So yeah, it is 2 years back. So is that this time around, Steven Smith is there. Their middle order is better with the presence of Marnus Labuschagne or Labuschagne. So obviously, even though David Warner is injured and might be back for the next test, it's the third on 7th, you could argue that Australia's batting is better. Travis Head has played more test matches since he played last against India. Tim Payne has captained the side for 2 more years, and at that time he had only captained the side for like 6 or 7 months, if I'm not mistaken. So there is that, and in terms of middle order, obviously they don't have Khawaja and Sean Marsh, but that's a decision that they have taken. It's not like uh, they both are unavailable. It's just that Australia have decided to drop them because they have Labuschagne on the third, Steven Smith fourth, and they have chosen to keep Travis Head, who is fifth. So they essentially have replaced Khawaja and Marsh from 2 years ago with Steven Smith coming back and Labuschagne. So you could argue that their team is slightly better in terms of their batting, and their bowling is obviously world class and probably the best in the world in this format, at least in their home conditions. So, so keeping that in mind, I don't think the level of batting that we have seen from Australia is not something that was expected, and credit has to be given to the Indian bowling. And in my opinion, the most credit has to be given to Ravichandran Ashwin. Uh, 10 wickets in two test matches is not something Ashwin does in Australia or in the Sena countries for that matter of fact. So, that's brilliant. And he has taken Steven Smith twice. Yeah, Steven Smith has gone out twice, right, to steer Ashwin. Yeah, in the second innings, obviously, in the first test, he was not out, if I'm not mistaken. So, Ashwin has got Steven Smith out twice, and more importantly, twice before he even reached a score of 10. So, that's not something that people expected. And Steven Smith form is something that has been horrendous. I think he has scored like 10 or 15 runs from 4 innings. So, that has obviously helped India a lot. And obviously, Bumrah has bowled well. Shami did bowl well in the first test, and then he got injured. Umesh Yadav was average. He was a sort of player that you would have wanted to drop Umesh Yadav after that performance with an Ishan Sharma if he was available, or even a Bhuvneshwar Kumar if he was available. But because there was nobody proper available, yes, there was Navdeep Saini, but would you rather trust Umesh Yadav or Navdeep Saini? So keeping that in mind, I guess Umesh Yadav was still there in the team, and he had a couple of good spells in the first two tests, but nothing to really talk about and praise him about. So That's that. But yeah, the bowling is something that was unexpected. But coming to my original point, which was the fact that 1 hour score was could have been predicted, because if you look at the first test, India's batting in the first test wasn't great in the first innings. Yes, Virat scored about 75, 80 runs, and Rahane stuck with him. But the problem with India's batting in the first innings of the first test was that once that tragic run out took place, catastrophical run out took place of Virat Kohli, there was nobody you could trust to actually bat well or to bat long. And that's where the Jadeja inclusion comes. And this is something that I said in the video slash podcast. I don't know if I made a podcast for that, but oh, if I did, then I definitely said this in the content that I made before the start of the series. I said that India should go with a 6-5 combination where the number 6 would be the wicket keeper. I obviously preferred Pant, but then I was fine with having Ridhiman Saha there. And the reason I preferred Pant was that he's a better batsman than Saha. And when you're going to have your wicket keeper at number 6, I wanted to have Pant. And I wanted to have Ashwin and Jadeja, regardless of the conditions, because yes, Australia is not going to provide the pitches are not going to provide you with a lot of spin, but Jadeja was a useful batsman and he has actually batted well in the last 2 to 3 years. So that's the reason I wanted Jadeja in the team, and I actually expected India to go with a 7-4 combination. I also said that. And India did go with a 7-4 with Vihari at 6 and Saha at 7. And even though that did not backfire in terms of the bowling, the problem it did create was that they also played Prithvi Shaw in opening, and that's one thing that I did say. Apart from the bowling things that I did say, it was that pick KL Rahul, I'm fine. I don't want him to open, but I'm fine. Or pick Gill, because I could not trust Prithvi Shaw to actually open well, and he did not. And I mean, he got out embarrassingly in both innings. Embarrassing not because of this type of dismissal, but just because of the fact that he was expected to get out that way and he did get out that way, which is not a good sign for a batsman. So there was that. So when there is Prithvi Shaw on opening and then you have 6 Vihari who you're not really confident about, and 7 Saha who is not known for his batting, and then 8 Ashwin who has not scored runs in the last 2 to 3 years. Actually, even more than that if you think about it in test matches. The last time he actually batted well was probably 2015 or 2016. And then he has had a good innings here and there. I'm not going to deny that, but he's also been injured, so there is that. So after number 5 Rahane, who himself was just coming into form, your whole batting was sort of weak, and that was exposed, that was expected in a way. And I mean, 36 for 9 is not something you expect from Team India, however bad the batting could be. But that score could have been 120 all out, that score could have been 150 all out, that score could have been chasing, let's say 200, that score could have been 170, lost by 30 runs. But that sort of a performance batting wise was expected. So that's one. The reason I say the 1 hour score was expected too is because if you think about it, this is just I'm talking in terms of general test matches, right? Indian general test matches in Australia. But if you take into account the pink ball factor, then I actually gave India a chance in the first test match even before the play began. Because when it's pink ball and you have a good bowling lineup, even though Australia's batting has improved, um, it could just collapse. And I actually expected Mohammad Shami and Bumrah to sort of run through the lineup and hope that Steven Smith got out cheaply, and that's what happened. So that was a performance that I expected from them in the pink ball test. So I actually expected India to win the pink ball and then lose in the next coming test match that we played in MCG, the Boxing Day test. But what happened was the reverse, and the the quality that India showed in the second test match is absolutely world class. Like honestly, when I was watching that test match, I was obviously nervous, but I mean they made 2 or 3 changes, right? They brought Gill inside, not inside, but into the team. They got Jadeja into the team. They got Mohammad Siraj into the team for the injured Mohammad Shami. And all three players played really well. You could argue a case that Gill was probably the second or third best batsman in the side in the test match. Uh, you could argue that Jadeja was absolutely immense in the number of runs he scored and the couple of wickets. He took 3 wickets, I think, in the two innings combined. They were really crucial because I remember he got Wade out and then he got Tim Payne out in the second innings at like in the 95 score or something like that. So that was really crucial. And then obviously I've already talked about Ashwin, and 10 wickets in 2 test matches is brilliant. So yeah, to be really honest, I don't expect India to win the series. I probably don't expect us to draw this series because I know for a fact that Australia are going to come back hard. It's just a question of whether India have enough in their arsenal, enough in their mental capacity to actually sustain a fight, because India will fight. The question is, can they sustain it? And if Warner is going to come back, and Steven Smith is currently in sort of a wounded state, and that's something, I mean, it would be interesting to see how he comes back, if he does come back. And so I do expect Steven Smith to score runs. I expect Warner to score runs because they both do score runs against India whenever they play. This series has sort of been an anomaly in terms of Steven Smith. So keeping that in mind, I don't expect India to win the next 2 test matches. But what I do hope to see is people like Pujara playing the way he has and scoring few more runs, because I love the fact that he plays out these 100 balls for 25 runs or something like that. And that is really important in the role that he plays. But comparing to the last series, he did that and then he went on to score runs. This series, for some reason or another, he has got out after getting a start. So I hope that Pujara scores runs. He has sort of been, I mean, if Australia have Steven Smith, India have Pujara in sort of like similar sort of scenarios, even though Pujara has probably played a lot more balls than him. And you then have Shubman Gill. I don't know if he scores runs, brilliant. If he doesn't, I don't know. You then have Rohit Sharma, who is going to come into the side, and that is something that I do want to talk about, the team for the third test, but I'll get into that a bit later. Rahane has to. I mean, I said in the video that I made before the start of the series, after Virat Kohli goes, it was absolutely imperative that Rahane and Pujara got into some form and actually stabilized the batting. So Rahane did that brilliantly. What an absolutely brilliant century that was. And even in the second innings, he batted really well, and there was no pressure. He sort of counter-attacked along with Gill, and that was the reason India won the second test. He was one of the primary reasons for that. So he does have to bat well. Rohit Sharma is a doubt. And when I say a doubt, I don't mean that his place in the side is a doubt or he has an injury or anything. What I mean is that, what do I expect from Rohit Sharma? And the last time he played test for India, it was in India. He opened and he scored a double century, if I'm not mistaken. He also scored a century. He scored runs basically. But this is Australia, and Australia does suit his batting style. It doesn't swing a lot, but I don't know. Like, in terms of opening in test matches for Rohit Sharma, he is still a baby. When I say baby, I mean he hasn't played a lot of test matches opening. So here and there, I'm not sure. But if Rohit Sharma does come into the side, he has to surely open, because if you then put him in number 4 or number 5, then I mean, I would understand that decision, but what I wouldn't understand in that aspect is that the whole talk around Rohit Sharma throughout his life has been such a talent, but his performances are not good. And then 2013 came, and he started opening, and then he started scoring runs in ODI. And then he was picked for test matches. He scored a century in his debut innings. But then after that, his test match performances have been average. And the question then was, such a brilliant white ball batsman, one of the best in the world ever, how can he not play test matches? Or how can he perform the way he has in test matches? It was just an enigma for people. And that enigma was created when he was batting at number 5 or number 6 for India. Away, home, doesn't matter. So then you decide that if Rohit Sharma has to be in the side, he has to open, or else he can't be in the side. He opened, he got runs. And then if you're going to play him in middle order, that wouldn't make sense, would it? I mean, it would make sense in the sense, it would make sense in the fact that he could probably occupy the number 4 spot and Rahane would go back to number 5. Or he and Rahane could bat for Rohit Sharma 5 and he could fit in really well, theoretically, but then he has never really played well in that position consistently. So, I don't know. So, if Rohit Sharma has to open, then the next question that arises is, what about Mayank Agarwal or Shubman Gill? Do you bring Rohit Sharma in for Agarwal and keep Vihari in the side? Personally, I don't want Vihari in the side. I would rather play Mayank Agarwal because I trust him more, and he has actually delivered a lot in the test matches that he has played. I mean, Vihari has played well. I think he has a century. He has had a few good innings, but if okay, fine. If you drop Mayank Agarwal, it's a simple enough thing because Rohit Sharma opens with Gill and then things go on. If Rohit Sharma comes in place for Vihari, then Rohit Sharma opens with who? Mayank Agarwal. Then where does Gill go? Surely Gill can't go to number 3 because Pujara there is number 3. I don't know, but I think Shubman Gill plays opening or number 3. I don't think he plays number 4, number 5. But then, do you want to make that switch? Do you want to put Gill at number 4? Such a brilliant debut. He has scored a lot of runs. He has scored about 60, 70 runs in the 2 innings combined. Do you want to then put him at number 4? I mean, I do know for a fact that this is not a decision that they're going to make in these 2 to 3 days. I'm sure that India had already planned a lot of this because Virat Kohli going was something that was mentioned quite a while back before the start of the first test. So, yeah. So yeah, that's something that has to be. I mean, I'm sure that India has already decided, and it's just a matter of fact. I do expect Rohit Sharma to open because it would be illogical to put him in number 4 or 5 because he hasn't actually consistently performed in that position. Even in the last series that India played in Australia 2 years ago, he did not really bat that well, and he actually missed a couple of tests too, if I'm not mistaken. So there was that. Um, and if Rohit Sharma opens, I think the most logical choice is to put Mayank Agarwal opening with him, and Gill probably goes to number 4. Or the most obvious swap would be to remove Mayank Agarwal, which would be really harsh on him, and then put Rohit Sharma with Gill and Bihari. That's at number 5. I mean, India cannot go with 4 bowlers again. I'm sorry, that should not happen because, like last test match, I mean, the reason you don't play 4 bowlers is not because you're expecting an injury, so you would rather have Jadeja as backup. But the fact is, if Australia do bat really well, right? I mean, they bat 120 overs, let's imagine. Ashwin has to bowl about 35-40. And then your other fast bowlers have 3 of them have to combine bowl the other 80 overs. And I mean, that's about 25, 26 overs each. And you wouldn't be able to rotate each of them properly. The usefulness of the 5th bowler is that, I mean, you can expect Australia to bat well. It's not a ridiculous assumption to make, and they are capable of doing that, and they're probably going to do that. So when you have the 5th bowler, what it does give you is that Jadeja could bowl about 20 overs, Ashwin about 30 overs, and then you distribute the 70 overs between the fast bowlers, about 24, 25 each. And what would then happen is at some point of time you could have Jadeja and Ashwin bowling about 4 overs each in a spell and give those 8 overs break to the fast bowlers, which would be really, really useful because if the fast bowlers and general bowlers, I mean, Ashwin has a bad injury record in the last couple of years. If they do strain themselves bowling a lot of overs, what then it does is it puts a lot of pressure, not a lot of pressure, but then it just gets into an injury mode for our bowlers and they tire a lot and then it affects their future performances in the series. And I would rather not have that. So the question of seven batsmen doesn't come in. And in terms of fast bowling changes, obviously Umesh Yadav is not going to play, and Mohammad Siraj and Bumrah are going to play. Who is going to be your third seamer? T. Natarajan or Navdeep Saini? To be honest, I have no idea about their Ranji Trophy or any of their sort of 4 day, 5 day career in their life. So personally, if Natarajan's numbers are good enough, if he can bowl those long overs, like long spells in a long day in a test match, if he's capable of doing that, I would rather prefer to have Natarajan in the team simply because he's a left-hander. That's as simple as that. Navdeep Saini, if he is a has a good track record and if he is also again capable of bowling. But the one thing with Navdeep Saini is he has been praised a lot. He is sort of this next gen bowler that we have below Bumrah. Bumrah was one generation, the next generation is Navdeep Saini and the likes. He's sort of the most praised and hyped around bowler in India. The problem with that is whenever I've seen him bowl, he has not looked wicket taking. I mean, I've obviously only seen him in limited overs and he has taken wickets, but the line and length he bowls is not necessarily wicket taking. But then that's from a limited overs point of view. When you shift that into a test match point of view, his line and lengths could actually be good in Australia if he is consistent enough. And that's the question that has to be answered. Is Navdeep Saini more consistent than T. Natarajan? Or it's the other way around? Because consistency and ability to bowl long overs, long spells, uh, and what they can provide with the bowling. Because what one thing that I didn't notice was Mohammad Siraj is not taking the new ball. If I'm not mistaken, Ashwin took the new ball when it was taken in one of the innings after Umesh Yadav got injured, if I'm not mistaken. So then the player who is going to come in, the fast bowler, has to take the new ball then, because if they're not going to take Mohammad Siraj, they're not going to give him the new ball, then somebody else has to bowl. I mean, Ashwin is not going to bowl it. Forget that. So yeah, that's also one thing that has to be considered, and I would prefer Natarajan just because he's a left-hander. I wouldn't mind either. So there's that. We are playing in Sydney, right? Sydney, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it has some spin record. So there's that to consider. I'm pretty sure we're not going to go with three spinners. I mean, that's not happening. Just we can all forget that. So Kuldeep Yadav coming in for Umesh Yadav is not certainly happening. Um, yeah. So what do I expect from this test match? I expect India to lose, to be honest, because I just think Australia are very strong, and the fight and the batting quality that India showed in the second test match, I don't think they are capable of giving that performance again. But then if they do, we are in for a wonderful test match, and I hope we win, because if we do win this, it's sort of like an egg on the face for all the idiots that have that criticized or rather underplayed India's performance 2 years ago. Because the thing that became, it was like Warner and Smith weren't available. That's why India won the Test series against Australia in Australia. Well, here we go. Steven Smith has played two innings, two Test matches against India. He has done nothing. Marnus Labuschagne, supposed to be the Steven Smith 2.0, supposed to be this batting genius and stuff like that, hasn't done anything in the series. They have had to open with Matthew Wade, who hasn't opened in his life before the series. I mean, Australia is such a cricketing country, a lot of cricketers coming through. They couldn't find two proper openers. And Joe Burns, he was some Burns, I think he was Joe Burns. That guy has not scored runs in ages, and he's still opened because they don't have any other openers. Because one injury to David Warner, apparently there are no other openers available in the country. So that's the state Australian cricket is in. So, I would love it if India would be able to draw or win the series, but I don't expect it to happen. Yeah. So that's all for this video slash podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please share the content and please leave your comments. They're really useful, appreciative, constructive criticism, stuff like that. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.